If you're new here, welcome to our channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep sharing stories that deserve to be heard. It happened at dinner right after the waiter poured the wine. My mom looked straight at me and laughed, asking why I still didn't own a penthouse like my brother. She didn't lower her voice. She wanted the whole table to hear. Everyone laughed with her forks paused midair. My brother leaned back, smiling like he'd won something. I sat there, calm on the outside, burning on the inside. Realizing this wasn't a joke, it was a reminder of where they thought I belonged. So I waited. I let the laughter die on its own. Then I said one quiet sentence that changed everything. And that was when the room finally understood who'd really been paying for his success. My name is Harper. I was around 30 then, old enough to know exactly who I was and young enough that people still felt comfortable underestimating me. I worked in financial investing, mostly focused on real estate. Nothing flashy, no big titles I could drop at family dinners, just numbers, patience, and decisions that only make sense. Years later, I didn't grow up in a loud house, but I grew up in a very clear one. There were rules, even if no one ever said them out loud. My brother Charlie was the future. I was the stable one. He was praised for dreaming big. I was praised for not causing trouble when he talked. People leaned in when I spoke. Conversations kept moving. Our family dinners always followed the same rhythm. My mom Monica sat at the center of the table like a host and a judge. At the same time, she loved stories that sounded impressive, especially if they involved Charlie. My dad Frank stayed quiet, chiming in just enough to look fair without ever pushing back. And Charlie learned early how to perform success. He smiled at the right moments. He spoke with confidence even when he had nothing solid to say. People believed him because they wanted to. I didn't fight for attention. I learned early that pushing back only made things worse if I corrected something. I was too sensitive. If I stayed quiet, I was so mature. Either way, the spotlight never moved, so I built my life somewhere else. I lived in a small apartment in the city, clean, simple, no view worth posting. I drove the same car for years, wore neutral colors, and spent most of my time working or learning. My world was spreadsheets, early mornings, and decisions no one clapped for. I liked it that way. It was peaceful. It was mine. Charlie's life looked very different. New places, better views, expensive dinners. He never seemed worried about paying for. He talked about properties the way people talk about weather, casually, like it all just came naturally to him. My mom loved repeating his stories, sometimes adding details that weren't even true. She'd glance at me while doing it like the comparison was the point. See, she'd say, that's what ambition looks like. I'd smile and nod because explaining never changed anything. By the time Charlie started talking about the penthouse, it had already become part of his identity, a symbol, proof, and my family treated it like the final confirmation that he was exactly who they always said he'd be. What they didn't realize was that while they were busy admiring the view, they'd completely missed who built the foundation underneath it. Once Charlie moved into the penthouse, everything shifted. Not in his life. In ours, it became the centerpiece of every conversation. Even when it wasn't mentioned directly, my mom found ways to circle back to it like it was a family achievement we all shared. She'd talk about views, elevators, doormen, neighborhoods. She'd never set foot in all with this proud little smile. That said, she finally had proof. Charlie leaned into it hard. He didn't say he owned the place, not exactly, but he didn't correct anyone either. He'd say things like, where I live, parking is a nightmare, or in my building, you have to plan deliveries ahead. Every sentence carried weight because people wanted it to. His friends nodded, my mom beamed. My dad stayed neutral, which somehow always landed on Charlie's side. Then Luna entered the picture. She had opinions about everything and volume to match. She talked about success like it was an aesthetic, the right lighting, the right address, the right man beside you. She praised Charlie in public and corrected him in private, pushing him to live bigger, look richer, move faster. When she talked about the penthouse, she said things like, this place fits you, as if an apartment could validate a person. Family gatherings became unbearable. Charlie would joke about upgrades, maybe new furniture, maybe changing a room. My mom would nod approvingly and then turn to me. You see, this is how people build their lives. You play it too safe, she said, kindly, which somehow made it worse. One afternoon, Charlie started talking about buying the place, not seriously, casually, like it was already decided. He said the owner didn't seem very involved, just some investor. He shrugged, Probably happy to cash out something in my C*******T. Tightened. I watched my mom's face light up. She asked questions. She imagined it out loud. She talked about how smart Charlie was for thinking long term. No one looked at me, not once. That night I went home and stared at my phone longer than I needed to. I had a message from the property manager. Another update, another delay, more payments, slipping past their due date numbers. I'd been tracking quietly for months. I felt tired, not angry, tired of carrying something everyone else was standing on. I thought about saying something, a warning, a hint. But I already knew how that would go. I'd be accused of jealousy, of overreacting, of trying to steal attention. So I did what I'd always done. I stayed quiet and kept records. The turning point came when my mom said it out loud. "Harper, you should learn from your brother." She told me over dinner one night. "Women don't need to push so hard. Stability is enough. Charlie is showing you what real ambition looks like." I didn't answer. I folded my napkin. I smiled. But something inside me finally settled into place. They weren't misunderstanding me, they were choosing not to see me. And that meant the only way this was ever going to end was with the truth placed right in the middle of the table where no one could laugh it away. After that dinner, something inside me finally went quiet, not numb, focused. I stopped hoping for fairness and started preparing for clarity. That's the difference people never notice. The moment you stop trying to be understood is the moment you become dangerous in the calmest way possible. I went back to my routine: early mornings, coffee that tasted burnt by the third sip, screens filled with numbers that didn't care about family politics. The property manager's updates arrived like clockwork: clean summaries, neutral language payments, late bills rolling forward. Nothing dramatic, just a pattern that couldn't hide anymore. I didn't confront Charlie. I didn't hint, I didn't vent to friends. I knew exactly how that would play out. Words would get twisted, intentions questioned, emotions weaponized. I'd be told to let it go, to be the bigger person, to remember that family matters more than details. Details were my job, and the details were telling me the truth. Charlie kept performing. He posted sunsets and city lights. He talked about long days and big plans. Luna amplified it all, turning his image into a brand. Every time I saw a new photo, I felt less anger and more certainty. This wasn't success. It was scaffolding, and scaffolding collapses when you stop pretending it's solid. My mom called more often. She asked questions that sounded casual but landed heavy. Was I happy? Did I feel fulfilled? Did I ever worry about being alone? Each question carried the same quiet judgment, the same assumption that my life was smaller because it was quieter. I answered politely and kept my boundaries tight. I didn't correct her. I didn't explain myself. I let her believe whatever made sense to her. Behind the scenes, I made one decision and stuck to it. I would not expose the truth in anger. I would not use it to embarrass anyone. If the truth came out, it would come out, clean in the open. At a moment they chose, not me. When my birthday dinner was planned, I almost declined. I knew what was coming. I could feel it in the way my mom sounded too cheerful on the phone. In the way Charlie casually mentioned the restaurant like it was another trophy. But then I realized something important. This wasn't about protecting my peace anymore. It was about ending a pattern, so I said yes. I showed up on time. I dressed simply. I sat down and listened. I watched the way they leaned toward Charlie, the way the table arranged itself without anyone noticing. And I waited, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't walking into that room as the quiet daughter or the responsible sister. I was walking in with the truth, and it was heavy enough to stop the laughter cold. The restaurant was the kind my mom liked to show off. Soft lighting, crisp white tablecloths, glassware polished so clean it caught every reflection. The kind of place where people spoke just a little quieter, like being there meant something about who you were. I arrived a few minutes early. My parents were already seated. My mom smiled too brightly when she saw me, the way she did when she was proud of the setting. More than the moment my dad stood, gave me a quick hug and pulled out my chair. Charlie was late. Of course, he always was. When he finally walked in, the energy shifted immediately. He wore that relaxed confidence that came from knowing the room would wait for him. Luna followed close behind, scanning the space like she was already deciding where the best photo would be taken. Charlie apologized without sounding sorry and slid into his seat like he owned the table. Before menus were even closed, the Penthouse came up. Traffic near his place was insane. The elevator was slow. The view was incredible. Tonight, each comment landed exactly where he wanted it to. My mom leaned in, eyes bright, soaking up every word she asked, questions she imagined aloud. She laughed at his jokes like they were inside secrets. My dad nodded along, adding neutral comments that somehow always validated Charlie's story. Then my mom turned to me. "So Harper," she said, setting her glass down carefully. "Any big changes?" Lately, I shook my head lightly. "Nothing major," she smiled. "But it wasn't warm, you know," she continued, her voice carrying just enough to reach the surrounding tables. "At your age, most people are trying to move up. Charlie already lives in a penthouse. You're still in that same place, right?" The table went quiet for half a second. Then someone laughed. Luna smiled into her drink. Charlie leaned back, arms crossed, enjoying the moment like it was a reward he'd earned. My dad cleared his throat but said nothing. I felt it then, that familiar tightening in my C*******T. Not shock, not even anger, just the old sharp understanding of exactly where I stood in their eyes. "I'm comfortable," I said. My mom waved it off. "Comfortable is fine for a woman," she replied, "but ambition looks different. Sometimes you have to push harder. Look at your brother. He knows how to live." There it was, the line, the one that always landed the hardest. The one dressed up as advice but built entirely out of comparison. Charlie smiled wider. Luna nodded like this was all very reasonable. Someone clanked a glass. The moment stretched, waiting for me to shrink the way I always had. I didn't. I took a sip of water. I let the silence settle. I felt the weight of every report, every number, every quiet decision I'd made over the years. And then I spoke. "The penthouse?" I asked calmly. Charlie looked at me, surprised I'd entered the conversation. "Yeah, I own it." The words didn't land right away. My mom blinked. Tara's smile froze. Charlie laughed once, sharp and quick. "Okay," he said. "Good one." I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. No shaking, no rush. I opened the property management summary. I'd looked at dozens of times before: payments, dates, balances. I turned the screen toward Charlie. "You've been renting it from me for years," I said. "Through the management company. You're a few months behind. By the way." The table went silent in a way that felt physical, like the air had thickened. My mom leaned forward slowly, her mouth slightly open. My dad stared at the phone, then at Charlie. Luna's eyes flicked between us. Calculating, Charlie's smile disappeared completely. "That's not funny," he said quietly. "It's not a joke," I replied. "You never asked who owned it. You never needed to. You were too busy enjoying the image." My mom turned on me instantly. "Why would you hide something like this?" she demanded. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something shift. "You never asked," I said. "And every time I tried to speak, you talked over me." My dad finally spoke up. "Maybe this is just a misunderstanding," he said carefully. "Charlie probably thought he'd catch up on the payments. Charlie seized on that exactly. I was gonna handle it. You didn't have to do this here." I met his eyes. "Do what I asked, tell the truth, or stop letting you pretend this was something you earned." Luna pushed her chair back slightly. "This feels unnecessary," she said. "Family things should be handled privately." I nodded. "They should." I agreed, but this stopped being private. The moment I was humiliated in public, no one laughed. Now no one nodded. My mom's hands tightened around her napkin. Charlie stared down at the table, jaw clenched, the confidence draining out of him in real time. "I'm not here to embarrass you," I continued, my voice steady. "I'm here to set a boundary. You have a month to catch up or move out. No extensions, and I expect you to stop implying you own something you don't." My mom looked like she wanted to argue, but no words came. My dad sat back silent. Luna avoided everyone's eyes. Charlie finally looked up at me, and for the first time there was no performance left. "You made me look stupid," he said quietly. I shook my head. "No. I let you finish the story. You started." The server arrived with the check, hesitated, and placed it gently at the edge of the table like she could feel something was wrong. No one reached for it. The celebration was over, the illusion was gone. We left without dessert, without photos, without pretending. Everything was fine. Outside, the night air felt cooler, quieter. My mom walked ahead of us, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. My dad followed, shoulders hunched. Charlie lagged behind, staring at his phone like it might give him answers for the first time. No one asked me to soften it. No one told me to let it go. The truth had done what it needed to do. The days after that dinner felt strangely quiet, not peaceful, just still, like the house had finally stopped. Echoing with the same old noise, my mom called the next morning. Then again that afternoon. I let the calls go to voicemail. When I finally listened, her voice had lost its sharp edge. It was tight, controlled, carefully wounded. She talked about family, about how things didn't need to be handled that way. She never apologized. She didn't need to. The silence between her sentences said enough. Charlie tried a different approach. First came the messages that sounded reasonable. He said he'd figure things out. He said he'd been under pressure. Then came the ones that carried blame, asking why I'd waited so long, why I couldn't have helped him quietly. I answered once, just once. I told him the deadline hadn't changed. After that, I stopped engaging. A few weeks later, the property manager confirmed he was moving out. The unit was left in decent shape. No damage, no drama. Just boxes, bare walls, and the absence of a life that had been staged for other people's approval. I didn't chase the overdue payments. I chose to close the chapter cleanly, not out of kindness, out of clarity. Family gatherings changed. After that, the comparison stopped. My mom watched her words more carefully. My dad started asking me real questions about my work. Instead of deflecting, Charlie showed up quieter, dressed, simpler, less certain but more real. We spoke occasionally, not like before, better. I sold the penthouse later that year and rolled the money into something bigger, something long-term, something solid. I upgraded my own life slowly, intentionally, without announcing it. What surprised me most wasn't the money or the shift in power. It was the relief of no longer carrying a truth alone. I didn't win. That night, I didn't defeat anyone. I just stopped shrinking to make other people comfortable. And once the truth was out in the open, everything finally landed where it belonged. Success doesn't need applause, and it definitely doesn't need permission. Sometimes the strongest move is simply standing still and letting reality speak for you. If you've ever been underestimated by the people closest to you, you're not alone. Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel by activating the bell, so you don't miss any of our daily videos.